Hi guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be checking, talking about episode. Welcome to episode 6 of the podcast. Today we are talking about the fifth movie. But before we get started, we're going to be doing a Q&A. Hold on, let me. Alright, we'll just start here. The first question is, how many pairs of shoes do you own? So currently, I own one pair of shoes. I think the most or number of pairs of shoes that I have ever had was, I think, about 5. Just because, sometimes it's good for you know to have options, but other times it's just like you know that what's the point? You wear the same ones all the time. And I actually I'm not going to show you because they're like crusty musty, but I definitely need some new shoes because, like, not that, like, they're literally like, but they're literally like falling apart, and it's like so annoying. What is your favorite popcorn topping? Okay, I'm like really weird when it comes to like popcorn toppings and stuff. I like putting like I like putting like M&Ms and shit um in my popcorn. That's delicious in my opinion. Which song do you hate the most? There's not a lot of songs I hate. Baby by Justin Bieber. Hate that song so much. It's so annoying. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Okay, I'm very introverted. I hate talking to people. What does your typical breakfast look like? I think my typical breakfast is usually let's see, cup of coffee. That's it. I got I got my coffee cup over there. I got it. I got my coffee cup over there. I got a Keurig. Got some K cups. We're good. We're Gucci. No, I've never said that before in my life. How old do you feel? Okay, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you, it it really depends on you know how I'm feeling that day. Because, like, some days, hold on, my lips are like really, really freaking chapped right now. But like I was saying, some days it's like I feel like my age, and then some days I feel like an 80-year-old man. It really just depends on like how my day is going, how my body is doing, because we're not going to talk about that. But if you if you were to get a tattoo tomorrow, what would it be? Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest with you again. I hate needles, so I actually have no desire right now to get a tattoo. And if I did get a tattoo, it would like mean something. Like, like I if we're talking like any tattoo, I would probably get something for my brother who died. Um, Probably just his name, tattooed across on my arm or something. There's a couple of other tattoos I would get. I think if I had to get tattoos, I would get my brother's name on my hand right there. Um, I would get I would get Ducky on one arm. I would get a sloth on the other arm. Um, you know, but it's like, but like I said, I have no intention of getting tattoos because they're like, first of all, I hate needles, and also they're permanent. So if you fuck up, you fuck up, and Do you have any family secrets? Nothing I can legally talk about. Do you like scary movies? I do. I find them entertaining. Now, they don't really scare me, but like they freak me out. Like Final Destination, like what the how close are how close are you to your family? Of what family? I I'm not gonna go into like too much detail, although I did do that in one of my lives, but I didn't really have the best family growing up. And right now, the I don't even talk to like anybody in my biological family anymore. I mean, I talk to my I think I think I talk to my grandmother like maybe once in a while, but like not on a regular basis. Not because I don't want to. How was that? But like I was saying, not because I don't want to, but it's more of a like I don't want to talk to somebody just to talk to somebody. There has to be like a reason. How sensitive are you? Very. Have you ever played Sudoku? How good are you? If so, how good are you? I have, and I'm terrible at it. If you started your own podcast, what would it be about and what's the title? Well, so I have two podcasts currently going, and I'm working on my third podcast. Um, there's obviously this one. I have my true crime podcast, and I'm working on a podcast that's just basically like random. That's just basically like random conversations and like stuff, like just like literally just me talking to the camera. I might have guests on that podcast. It's called the Weekly What podcast. And I'm hoping to have the first episode out sometime in the next month or two. Um, the episodes will come out on Sundays, so I have True Crime on Tuesdays, this podcast on Thursdays. Sneeze, sneeze, sneeze. And weekly what on and weekly what on Sundays. Biggest jerk you've ever met, my stepdad. Do you believe in aliens? Absolutely. There's gotta be there's gotta be some form of extraterrestrial life. It's like, you know, is your belly button an innie or an outie? Okay, not that any of y'all need to know this, but it's definitely an innie. Like, Coke or Pepsi. Um, First of all, it's all Coke, no matter what brand it is. But if we're talking about like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, definitely Coca-Cola. I like a good Diet Coke. What's the funniest movie you've ever seen? I think the funniest movie I've ever seen is probably any one of Adam Sandler's comedy movies. Like The Cobbler, Happy Gilmore, the original. I haven't seen the second one yet at the time of this recording. He's funny. Um why am I not thinking of anything else? He has so many movies, and that's literally the only two I can think of right now. How often do you laugh? Literally every day for no apparent reason. Sometimes there's a reason, sometimes something actually funny happens. But, I'm one of those people who are just randomly just sitting there, and they randomly just start, just starting to think about something that you said or something that happened like years ago, and then you're just like, you know, it just makes sense. What's your favorite way to spend a Sunday? Same thing I do every day. But that is going to wrap up our Q&A session. Let's move on to discussing the fifth movie. Now, the fifth movie is, I gotta say, it's one of my favorites. If I had to choose, other than like Journey Through the Mist and the original. But you know, there's things that I would change about it. I mean, there's definitely, there's definitely some good parts of the movie, but there's also some not so good parts of the movie. I do like the fact that Chomper makes his return in this movie. I'm waiting for fanfiction to load so it's ready for us when we jump. We're on chapter 7, right? I'm thinking. No, wait. Yeah, we're on chapter 8. Alright, so now this movie was the movie where there was a lot of big, cash changes because be- because Sarah was replaced, Ducky was replaced, um like Sarah was replaced, um Littlefoot was replaced, Ducky was replaced, but it's kind of surreal because LBT5, Mysterious Island, is when we first um, got to witness the vocal talents of Arya Curzon and Andy McAfee, who are absolutely amazing at their work. Um, Other than Judah, I think Arya is my favorite Ducky. Um, and Andy's good, but she's no Candace Hudson. But anyways, let's get into it. The plot. One day, leaf gobblers descend upon the Great Valley, devouring all plants and reducing it to a barren wasteland. The Great Valley's inhabitants must find another place where they can survive until the plants have grown back. However, the leaf gobblers have left a path of devastation behind them, leaving no food for anyone to find. After searching for days, tension enters the group as Sarah's father and Littlefoot's grandfather argue over changing their course, beginning a fight between Littlefoot and Sarah. The fight breaks up when Sarah's father announces that every herd should go its own way the next morning. Not wanting to be separated, Littlefoot leads his friends off in the night in the hope they can find food before they are caught. They leave a trail for the grown-ups to follow and reach the big water. Disheartened by the undrinkable water, the children spy a verdant island and connected to the mainland by a land bridge. En route, an earthshake occurs, which creates a tsunami from which they escape. They tuck it into the plentiful bounty of the island, but are then horrified to discover the tsunami has destroyed the land bridge. Isolated on the island, they try out Sarah's idea to return by using a log as a boat. The plan works well despite Sarah suffering seasickness and Petrie being too terrified of the big water to act as a lookout. However, a swimming sharp-tooth attacks, and in the confusion and fright which follows, they end up on the island again. That night, they remember their families, while the herd, having followed the trail, sleep on the shores of the beach of the mainland, worrying for them, while Sarah's father blames their leave on Littlefoot. Tops again. I'm serious, bro. I hate this guy. The next morning, the children wake up to the shadow of a sharp-tooth, only to find that it is Chomper, the young sharp-tooth who previously hatched in their care before returning to his parents. Since then, Chomper has learned how to speak. Chomper takes them to a safe refuge to hide from his parents. Unaware of Chomper and the others, a Gigantosaurus has been living on the island and begins hunting down the children. Afterwards, Ducky is captured by a pterodactylus, but escapes before coming to any harm. Chomper hides the children in odorous plants and provides them with leafy food upon their request. However, Sarah displays distrust to Chomper, leaving him heartbroken as he departs in tears. Littlefoot follows him and apologizes, but is interrupted by Chomper's mother. She nuzzles him, then leaves. Littlefoot is intrigued by her display of love for Chomper. As Littlefoot went back to the hideout, the Gigantosaurus finds and chases the children towards a cliff above the big water. Chomper tries to help but is overcome by the sharp-tooth. His parents come to the rescue of Chomper, and the same thing for the kid, and battle the sharp-tooth near the edge of the island, during which he falls into the big water and takes Chomper with him, much to his parents' shock. Littlefoot plunges in to save Chomper, while the sharp-tooth is swept away by the ocean current. After swimming, another swimming sharp-tooth appears. But this time, they discovered Elsie, an Elamosasaurus. I swear, these real names will be the death of me, who saves them from drowning. She returns them to the island, where Chomper's grateful parents promise never to eat the children. Chomper's father promises the same, while admitting that, after sniffing Spike, who had eaten some of the foul-smelling hideout, anything that smelt that bad would not taste good anyway. Chomper's mother also nuzzles Littlefoot in gratitude for his actions to save Chomper from drowning. Sarah realizes her mistake and accepts that not all sharp teeth are so bad as she thought. Elsie offers to take them across the sea, so Chomper and his parents bid them farewell, promising that they will see each other again. When they get back on the mainland, they find that the herd found a lush green sanctuary on the shore where they can stay. When the Great Valley becomes fertile again, the herd returns home. And like I was saying earlier, it's not, like I said, it's not the best movie, but it's not like the worst movie because it's not Wisdom of Friends. And on the I think for the season one finale of the podcast. Now season one is going to be all about the movies. So I think after at the end of season one we'll do a ranking of all the movies. But but anyways, let's start the fan fiction reading. Chapter 8, Plan Revealed. Allie ran as quickly as she could to get away from the Peacekeeper's ledge. After all the danger she had gone through to warn her friends, they hadn't believed her when she told them of Toronto's plot. She wanted to hate them now, she really did, but her conscience would not allow her to do such a thing. She soon reached a coast where she could hide in case Littlefoot tried to run after her. Once inside, she sat down to think. How could they not believe me? She thought. I guess Petrie would want me to stick up for his uncle, though I still cannot believe that they are related. But why won't the others listen? Had she stayed with Littlefoot and waited for an explanation of his answer, she might have found a way to convince him of the truth. But sitting there alone with her thoughts, all she could do was think about how she had wasted her time to help some friends who, it seemed, weren't really her friends after all. I should have guessed that the only reason they wanted me around was to find the night flower for them, she thought bitterly. Again and again she came to the conclusion that there was no point in staying around in the valley. If she left now, she might have a chance of reuniting with her herd again, if she were quick. Well, I guess there's nothing for me here, she thought. I should try and get back to the herd and just forget about Littlefoot and the others. So, with a heavy heart, the young Longneck got to her feet and made her way towards the valley's entrance, determined to sever all connections with Littlefoot and his friends. Filled with guilt, Littlefoot made his way down the slope, heading for home. It had been bad enough that they were fighting amongst themselves, but to bring another into it made it even worse. On his way back, he passed Petrie's cave. As he walked, he saw Toronto fly out, heading towards the Smoky Mountain. He still doubted Ali's story, but he decided to follow just to make sure. He found it necessary to crawl through the undergrowth that littered the pathway in order to stay out of sight. As Toronto flew on, Littlefoot ducked into a thicket of trees. Unseen, he was able to gallop and catch up. Eventually, Toronto landed near the mountain. Littlefoot hid behind a large boulder and watched him approach two other flyers. One was black and the other was red. Littlefoot remembered Allie telling them that Toronto had found two new friends. It was starting to look like Allie might have been right after all. He could just make out what they were saying. "How is the firewater doing?" Toronto was asking. This only served to confuse Littlefoot, as he had no idea of where or what the entrances to the cave were. "It is receding, but it seems to be moving much slower than the last time," Ark answered the question. Toronto was annoyed by this and visibly shook with anger. He turned to Rax. Since arriving, Toronto had made him keep an eye on the other dinosaurs, especially Littlefoot and the others, so they would know if trouble was arising. Is anyone getting suspicious?" Toronto asked. Rax shook his head. "I don't think anyone cares about what we're up to," he replied. "Well, that doesn't sound too good," Littlefoot thought. "So, most importantly, the children suspects nothing?" he asked. "I don't think they will be much of a problem," said Rax. "They seem to be arguing among themselves right now. Too self-involved to worry about what we're up to." "Good," Toronto said. "They've been spying on us." Littlefoot realized, "I wonder if they know about Allie returning." He watched as they made their way towards the base of the smoking mountain. Now, he could barely hear what they were saying. However, he did manage to pick up just two words. Those words were lost and souls. Allie had soon made some reasonable distance. It was almost dark, and she decided now would be a suitable time to find a place to spend the night. She looked all around and spotted an overhanging rock. She made her way over to it, curled up, and prepared to fall asleep. However, it was impossible to do such a thing when there were so many thoughts running through her mind. Would she be able to catch up with her herd? Was she doing the right thing by leaving the valley? Should she have gone in the first place? What was going to happen to Littlefoot? She came back to that last question again and again. Even though she did not believe him about Even though he did not believe her about Toronto, she couldn't just let him stay there in danger, unaware of it. Though she would not admit it, since her herd had left the valley and she had grown up a little, she had developed a crush on him. Now, she knew that she wouldn't be able to forgive herself if something happened to him. She made up her mind she would go back to the valley, knowing full well that she was giving up all chances of returning to her herd. With her mind finally straightened out, she was able to fall asleep, deciding to head back in the morning. As Littlefoot walked away from the smoking mountain, all he could think about was how Allie had been right and how he hadn't believed her. "I still don't know if this whole lost souls thing is real or not, but when Toronto wants something this badly, he's dangerous," he thought. He decided that the first thing to do would be to go and find Allie and apologize. He was sure that the others would believe her now, that he would be backing her up. He made his way back to the Peacekeeper's ledge. By the time he had arrived, the last traces of the day disappeared as darkness enveloped the sky. From the ledge, he was able to find Allie's scent and started to follow it. The scent led him to a copse. There he thought to veer off in a completely different direction. As he drew nearer and nearer to the great wall, he started to worry. I knew she was upset, but she wouldn't have left the valley, would she?" he thought to himself. His fears were confirmed when he reached the west path and realized that the scent traveled straight out into the mysterious beyond. "Last, she has. How could she have left?" he thought. Knowing that he had no other choice, he took one last look around the valley and then followed the trail out of it. Chapter 9. Beyond the Great Wall. Though his brothers and sisters were asleep with their mother, Petrie's eyes had remained open long after the bright circle had removed its presence from the sky. He had been so excited at first to see the return of an old friend, but the accusations Ali had made about his uncle Toronto simply could nor would not be accepted. After all, they say blood runs thicker than water. Petrie sat by the entrance to the cave his family used as their home. It seemed that the five friends, who had struggled through many hardships and dangers together, had finally been alienated from one another. Part of Petrie wanted everyone to make up and forget what happened, but he decided that forgiveness would come only after an apology was made. Until then, he would not speak to the others. He tried to settle down to sleep, but even now, anger kept his eyes open. In the end, he decided to calm himself down and tire himself out by flying around the valley a few times. He walked to the mouth of the cave, flapped his wings, and took off into the black, starry sky. When morning finally came, Littlefoot was up at once. He was sure Ali would sleep a while longer, having walked so much the day before. So this was his chance to gain some ground and catch up. He had spent the night sleeping in a ditch. It had not been his best decision ever, but there had been no other source of cover, so when it was a choice between smelling bad the next day and being eaten, he concluded that he could always have a bath later. He just hoped that when he tried to convince Ali to return, the smell wouldn't put her off. As he walked on, he his mind returned to what he had heard Toronto talking about the day before. No words had been uttered which proved or disproved the existence of the lost souls, but now he knew that Petrie's dear old uncle was up to something. He also wondered how the others would react when he would back up Ali by telling them all what he had seen. He doubted that another voice would be enough to sway Petrie's mind, but the others were definitely going to have mixed reactions about this. Just what kind of reactions would they be? Littlefoot had been right when he assumed Ali would sleep longer than he had. She awoke a few hours later, and by this time Littlefoot was getting very close to her. Ali made her way out of the small cave. She remembered the decision she had made the night before and set off, back in the direction of the valley. As she walked, she was saddened when she thought about her mother. She was certain that she would never see that smiling face again. That's until it finally dawned on her that the herd was one day bound to return to the Great Valley for a visit. When that happened, she would be able to see her mother once again. With this thought finally satisfied, she quickened her pace with a new heart in her. Now her thoughts turned to how she was going to convince Littlefoot that she had been telling the truth before. Before she made it very far with these thoughts, a loud roar filled the canyon. Not again, Ali thought, remembering the sharp tooth she had met on the way to the valley. Ali looked around the corner and saw a sharp tooth that had just woken up and was now ready for some breakfast. As luck would have it, she was the closest morsel around, and she decided that it would be a good idea to put some distance between her and the large killing machine. Unfortunately, the sharp tooth had already spotted her and decided to participate in a spot of hunting. It let out an almighty roar and lumbered over her. Though terrified, Ali knew she could not turn tail and run, as instinct told her. If she did so, she would distance herself from the valley. So massing together her courage, she charged straight towards the sharp tooth, running right through the Titan's legs. With the sharp tooth behind her, she set off She set her sights on the valley walls, wishing she had not made so much progress the previous night. Behind her, the massive juggernaut saw its quarry escaping and immediately turned around to give chase. Not very far away, Littlefoot heard the roars made by the sharp-tooth. "Oh, please, don't let it be after Allie. I can't take so much in just one morning," he thought to himself. To his dismay, Allie's scent, which he had been following due to a lack of footprints, seemed to run in that direction. Great, Littlefoot thought. Just great. He quickened his pace as much as possible. Eventually, Allie came into view. Though he could not see the sharp tooth he had heard before, he could tell the way that Allie was streaking towards him. His fears had been confirmed. Needless to say, Allie was surprised to see Littlefoot. But time, this was not for saying hello. "Run, Littlefoot," she cried. "A sharp tooth is coming." She ran on past him, heading in the direction he had come from. As Littlefoot turned to run, he saw the giant behemoth approaching. A second later, Littlefoot was away like a shot, following in Allie's direction. The sharp tooth, now seeing it could have twice the meal it originally assumed it would, quickened its pace, ready for the kill. Littlefoot was soon level with Allie, but both were tiring and could plainly see their foe was advancing. "We can't keep this up for long," Littlefoot yelled to Allie. Allie nodded in agreement. "There must be a way to stop it," she cried back. As the two young longnecks ran, they each scoured the tall, rocky walls on either side of them, desperately searching for something that could help them. Allie spotted a small cave close by. "Littlefoot, we can hide in there," she called to him. They ran toward the open and just managed to squeeze through before the large jaws behind them snapped shut. "That was close," Littlefoot gasped, pausing for breath. They walked on a little, wanting to get away from the sharp tooth. As they came to the end of the small tunnel, they found themselves in a large cavern filled with lava pools. Now it was time to talk. "Why did you come out here, Littlefoot?" Allie asked. Littlefoot could not bring himself to look Allie directly in the eyes. "I overheard Toronto talking to some flyer about the lost souls. I tried to find you so I could apologize for not believing you before. Then I realized that you had left the valley," he explained. Now it was Allie's turn to hang her head. She was ashamed of her reckless decision to leave the valley so quickly, but she was glad that she now had one less friend to convince. "You have nothing to apologize for," she said. "I shouldn't have overreacted when you didn't buy what I was saying. I guess it is a little hard to believe." Littlefoot sighed in relief. "So what do we do now?" he asked, more to himself than to Allie. "We have to find another way out of the cave," she said. "Sharptooth may not be smart, but they are very persistent. That brute will stay there for the rest of the day." Littlefoot nodded in agreement as they got to their feet and prepared to explore the cave. Allie started to sniff the air. Littlefoot gulped as he realized the effects of sleeping in the ditch last night had not worn off yet. "What is that smell?" Allie asked. And that is where we're going to stop the reading today. Let me see if I can, find. Is it over there? Yeah, it's over there, but I don't feel like getting up right now. We are going to spend the last little bit of the podcast going through the group like we did last week. As of the recording of this episode, we are still waiting for Candace's announcement, whatever that may be. Whatever that may be. There's a pending post. See about that. All right, let's go. You know, at the time of this recording, it was the anniversary of Judith's death. So there's a lot of like right now in the group there's a lot of like tribute stuff to her. Did you know that they made LBT Funko Pops? That's cool. I think that's cool. Everybody's still showing off their tattoos, which is absolutely amazing. I love seeing this so much. Um there is a member currently at the time of this recording, but by the time you see it, it will be out, where they are talking about trying to find what the best Land Before Time sequel is, and right now it's down to the Mysterious Island, which we talked about today, and the Secretosaurus Rock, which we will talk about next week. Now, how people and I commented on there, how people chose the Secretosaurus Rock over Journey Through the Mist, I will never understand. And then Josh responded, I know, right? And I'm like, seriously, best movie ever, you know? So, you know, that's like really fun. And of course, there's like fan art and stuff, you know? And, you know, just scrolling through the group, especially these last few days, and seeing the all the posts and you know love for Judith. It's just you know it's just amazing. You know, but all right, I don't have time for it to decide if it wants to load. But anyways, guys, that concludes today's podcast episode. Hope you have enjoyed. And yeah, I'll see you next week with episode 7. Bye.